theirs is flesh and blood. But a man couldn't have survived that fire. The more he kills, the more he transcends.
Run! Go now!
He's the essence of evil.
Welcome to Latin Horror. Thanks for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you today with Latin Horror. I just had the opportunity to see Halloween Kills the other night at a press screening here in New York, and I was immediately taken back to 1979. The film felt nostalgic and sort of true to its original roots. How have you managed to tap into the zeitgeist of the franchise and still make it fresh and entertaining after all these years?
Well, I did one very important thing. I chose David Gordon Green as our fearless leader. He's a spectacular director. He's written and directed. This is his 14th film, and he's just a really talented artist. And I think he walked the line very, very carefully between inventing something new and respecting what was there, you know. And I think that all three movies, particularly the second movie, does just a great job of bringing new things to this franchise, but also kind of revering the things that worked so well in so many of the movies, particularly in John's first movie, in Carpenter's first movie.
Excellent. I think that really comes through. So you had John Carpenter, Jamie Lee Curtis as executive producers on Halloween 3. I know Carpenter also composed some of the music. How instrumental were they in ensuring that this latest film feels as organically genuine as it does?
You know, they were very instrumental. The first person I went to when I made an agreement to produce these three movies was John. I really didn't want to do it without John, and I don't think David would have done the movies if John Carpenter hadn't been an executive producer. And John, you know, reads all the scripts early, gives us ideas about the scripts, ideas about casting, and then obviously does the score himself. So he was very kind of important to the process of making these movies. And Jamie Lee Curtis, the same. You know, obviously she's an actress in the movie. She does a great job as an actress. She's also, we refer to her as the Halloween cheerleader, the Halloween icon. You know, no one's face is associated with Halloween more or equal to probably Jamie and Michael Myers. So it was very important to anchor the two of them as executive producers, so that we could get this right. Awesome.
So David Gordon Green really does an excellent job of making us feel like we're back in the original films, as well as some of the ones that I think have really scored well over the years, which go over well not only to the diehards like myself who grew up in the 80s, but also to newbies that can go back and sort of get reintegrated into the story. What's the sort of critical pivot point that was discussed in sort of ensuring that happened, if you will?
You know, I think the biggest reason for that is that David was a true fan of all the movies before he did the movies. He knows every Halloween. He not only has watched them all, he knows them all. He can reference them all in a way I couldn't begin to do. And I think that he just, you know, deep inside his bones, he loved this franchise. And I think when you put someone like that in charge of continuing the franchise, they do it in such a way that you can feel kind of the reverence of the earlier movies in the movies that David worked on.
That's great. I can't interview you without asking some questions also about your trajectory. You know, a lot of people in the industry, even industry insiders, think that you fell out of the sky when you made Paranormal Activity, but we know that was kind of like an overnight success. It took 15 or 20 years to happen. Tell us a little bit about your path to the Blumhouse success and building your genre-centered media empire.
Let's see. My roommate in college was a great filmmaker named Noah Baumbach. He and I partnered on his first movie, which was called Kicking and Screaming. And I went from that movie to working at a small company in New York called Arrow Entertainment, where I kind of learned about film production and distribution. And I graduated from Arrow to what was kind of the most important independent film company in New York in the late 90s, which was Miramax. And I worked there for a handful of years, and I really felt like I always wanted to have the key to the front door in my own pocket, not someone else's. So I opened my own company in 2000. In 2000, I produced a handful of independent movies, No one saw them. I got very frustrated by that. And then I did a big studio movie called The Tooth Fairy for Fox. And a lot of people saw that movie, but it wasn't too fun to make. And then Paranormal Activity came along, and it kind of everything that I had done up until that time made sense. It was the ultimate independent movie financed by the director for $15,000, and it was distributed by a very traditional studio. And that to me seemed like if I was going to be in the movie business, that's what I wanted to do: make independent movies that were released by studios. So I made a deal with Universal, and we started to do that. We did Insidious and Sinister and The Purge, and it was off to the races from there. And about 5 years ago, we started producing, a substantial amount of television. Our most recent show was on Showtime called The Good Lord Bird, which won a Peabody Award, by the way. And now the company is about 50% movies, 50% television. We have about close to 100 people working at the company. We make 6 or 7 movies a year and about 100 hours of TV, and we try and have a lot of fun.
I have one more question, if you will.
Sure.
And this goes to the heart of what the brand has come to know, and as someone like me, who's Hispanic, Latino from New York City, the thing that stands out for me is that a lot of people talk about diversity and creating multicultural content, but you're actually walking the walk. You bring in Black, Latino, multicultural helmers and writers to the brand. Black as Night, The Purge, Madre, my favorite, Bingo Hell, only because Gigi Guerrero is part of our team here. Tell us about why you decided to take the risk when so many other producers or studios have not gone that route.
Yeah, well, for me, it's really a business decision more than anything else. It just to me, it just represented good business. The audience of our movies, the old white guys who look like me were in the minority. In fact, Caucasians are in the minority in our audience. Our audience is made up of people of all different races, and actually our audience skews a little more female than male. So I think it's important that the storytelling, the storytellers represent our audience. And I think it makes for more interesting storytelling. I think it makes for better storytelling. I think it really, one of my favorite things about movies is it gives a window into another world that you're not familiar with. Our film Madres that you mentioned about Mexican immigrants, mixing with American society in California. That story is told in a way that I think may be familiar to some people, certainly
That's
not
right.
familiar to me. And I found it fascinating for that reason. The one you didn't mention, which I'm really excited about, is we're doing Horrors of Dolores Roach. Do you know that?
I do.
Yeah. So
That's
we
awesome.
shot the pilot of that, and it came out so well. And we're waiting to hear if they let us, make the rest of the series. I think they're going to let us do it, and I can't wait for that to come out. That's an incredible tale. It takes place a little north of where you are now, I think.
That's going to be an amazing thing to see. I know that anything you guys have been touching lately has been turning to gold. Well, now that you have, back to the last final question with Halloween Kills, now that there's like 11 films under the belt in the franchise, how do you plan to keep it sort of engaging for both the diehard fans and newbies, especially when we have one coming in 2022 that talks about Halloween ends and it being the final saga of Michael Myers and Laurie Strode?
Well, you have to tell me if you think David did a good job, but I think he did a pretty good job. I think tonally, this movie feels tonally a little different, what makes it feel distinguishes it from the first movie. The kills have gotten more gruesome and bloodier, which of course I love. I've never seen someone get killed in the armpit before, which I thought was very special. And I think David did a great job with this movie, and I hope the audience does too.
I can assure you that as a fan from the 80s, David Gordon Green did an excellent job, and there was a great balance of introducing the characters who were both victims and survivors, and maintaining that feel of the original series as I remember it. and the cinematography was amazing too. So you pulled it off. I think that's about the time we have. Mr. Blum, I'm so delighted that we got some moments to speak to you, and I wish you continued success with everything you're doing in Blumhouse, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I appreciate your time and the interview, and I hope to talk to you again soon.
Peace.
Evil dies tonight!